Hey guys, welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. I'm Kenzie, and today we're going to be reading some more true Reddit ghost stories. The first one comes from user u/chriswillar, or Willar. It's called Benevolent House Resident. This happened when I was about 6 years old, but I still remember it well. Like many kids that age, I was scared of the dark to the point where a Scooby-Doo movie could give me nightmares for weeks. So I often moved to lie with my head in the bed's foot end, as it allowed me to peek out the door and into the living room, where my parents usually watched TV after tucking me in. This particular night was no different. It was dark and quiet, and I assumed my parents had gone to bed. Then I saw a slender woman who looked to be no older than 30. Her hair was long, almost down to her waist, and she wore a simple dress that reached her shins. She wasn't transparent, but she had this weird, faint glow, and she held her arms to her chest as if she was carrying a tiny infant. I knew instantly that it wasn't my mother, who had short hair, almost a bob, and she never wore more than underwear to bed, maybe a t-shirt at most, but certainly not a long nightgown. Furthermore, my younger sister was a toddler at the time, far bigger than the infant-like thing that woman was holding. She walked silently with her face directed down towards the quote-unquote infant, paying me no attention as she slowly walked past my bedroom door. I knew it wasn't my mother, yet despite my usual night terror, I felt absolutely calm. It was as if I recognized instinctively that this woman, whoever she was not a threat to me. And so I lied still, waiting for her to return. She could not walk more than 3 to 4 steps past my door in the direction that she was going, due to an old wooden dining table which could seat 8 to 12 persons, blocking the way. She couldn't even walk around it either. She would have to turn around. But no matter how long I waited, she never returned. In the end, I got tired of waiting and got out of bed to check it out. Nothing. There was no one in the living room, nor the kitchen. I even went to check on my parents, who were sound asleep. Puzzled, I headed back to bed and eventually fell asleep. I asked my parents at breakfast the following morning who the lady from last night was, as I had never seen her before. Had they held a late-night get-together? But my parents had no clue about what I was talking about, and I ended up just shrugging it off. I never saw her again, but my fear of the dark ended soon after, as if the encounter had somehow insured me. And more than 2 decades later, I still feel her presence in the house. My parents and sister have noticed it too, although they have never seen her. Sometimes we joke about it, except for my sister, who feels uncomfortable and creeped out by it. My childhood home isn't particularly old, but had been owned a few times before my parents purchased it in their late 20s. They still live there. We're not religious, and I don't know who or what she could be, but the house would feel oddly empty without her, and I liked the small signs of her there. The next story is from u/hgetlizzy. It's called My Ghost Story. Ghosts are real. Here's my story. Even some people I know in real life didn't really believe me when I told them about what happened. And despite my friends knowing I'm a very honest person, I understand because to the majority of people, the idea of ghosts being real is hard to believe. So a little backstory. I used to live in this house with my mom and dad from when I was born to about age 5. It wasn't ours, but our mom was a full-time nanny at the time, so she had the option to live in the house with the family. We lived on the top floor. The house itself is massive and was built in the very early 1900s. I remember my dad saying about how he woke up in the middle of the night one night to see a girl stroking my mom's hair, just staring at her while she's done so. Although he's not the most believable person, I always sort of believed him because I used to get weird vibes from the house, the top floor in particular. When he told the family who owned the house, they kinda told him he was dreaming and that ghosts did not exist. Fast forward however many years, we had moved to a flat, but my mom was still working for the family. A girl in her early 20s moved into the house and was living in the bit we lived in. During this time, the father became very ill and ended up in hospice. One day my mom had gone to visit him, and he said to her that I need to apologize to you about something. She asked him what it was about. He went on to explain the girl who moved in had a friend over one night, not long before he ended up in hospice, and she woke up in the middle of the night to see a gray woman walking across the room she was sleeping in. From that day on, he recognized that ghosts probably are real and that his house was haunted, but asked my mom not to tell his wife, as he didn't want her to worry about it, especially as he knew he wasn't going to be alive for much longer. My mom didn't tell me this until a few years after he passed away, and I was quite shocked, to be honest, and started to believe what my dad had said for years a lot more. Fast forward to 2021, and my mom had moved into a house with her boyfriend and my sister. Not trying to give you my life story, but I was a bit annoyed with the situation, which I won't get into. But basically, I decided I wasn't going to live with them. My mom still works for that same family to this day, but only as a cleaner once a week. She was telling the woman about what was happening, and long story short, she offered to rent out the top floor of the house to me. I decided to move in despite my fears of the house being seriously haunted. For the first 6 months, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. The only thing was that when my bedroom door was open, on countless occasions, I felt like someone was running down the hallway, which used to give me goosebumps. I moved in February 21st. Like I say, I saw no ghosts for the first 6 months and started to convince myself that I was just being paranoid when I felt like someone was running down the hallway outside my bedroom. Sometime in August this year, I fell asleep watching a podcast on YouTube. The worst thing about this story was the night this happened, it happened to be really windy and there was heavy rain all night. I woke up suddenly at either midnight or 1 a.m., I can't remember exactly, but I know it had just gone past the hour mark. My eyes were open slightly, and I looked left to see the TV on and the podcast still playing. As I turned my head, I can't stress enough how much I am telling the truth right now. At the end of my bed stood this gray-looking lady in really old clothes. It's quite hard to explain what she looked like, as I only had a couple seconds before I had to hide under my covers. But she had afro braids and just looked really interested in me and with what I was doing there. Just imagine a normal person, but they're almost glowing and they have a grayish sort of color to them. I was shivering because I was that scared, barely managed to get any sleep that night. But since that day, I can honestly confirm ghosts are real, and I understand why people have doubts. However, I know what I saw. Before you ask, no, I wasn't drunk or high that night. I still live here, but want to move ASAP, as I constantly worry about the next time I might see her again. This next story comes from user u/Santsuo. It's called My First Experience with the Shadow Man. When I was young, probably 10 years old, I was home alone for the first time. My parents had a board meeting and my brother had practice, so they let me stay home for 2 hours. It was starting to get dark out when they left. I was laying on the couch watching TV. My trusty cat, Cat Bones, was laying at my feet on the armrest of the couch. As I lay there watching TV, I saw the cat stand up. I looked down to him and saw he was arching his back and puffing up, staring up at the stairs. The staircase was one of those kinds that go up a flight, turn, and go up to a second floor. There was a wall that separates the 2 flights of stairs. I looked up and I saw a person standing there, half visible, the other half of them obscured by the wall. I looked back at the cat, and he was back to laying there on the armrest. Young me, thinking someone broke in, grabbed a baseball bat and searched the house. Having found no one in the house and all the windows secured, I went to my room and sat in my bed. As I sat there processing what happened, a voice softly whispered my name from behind me. I leapt up and ran out of the house to sit on the porch till my parents got home. I never spoke a word of what I saw to anyone until 4 years ago. I casually told this story to my brother and sister. Little sis gasped and said once she saw the same thing when she was a teen. I have no idea of the house history, but we did live across the street from a cemetery. And that's all the stories I have for today. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe so you know when I post next. Put your paranormal stories in the comments and I'll possibly read them in a video. I'll see you guys next time.